This is Infection, the survival podcast recorded live on Tuesday, December the 20th, 2022, episode 414. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome into another edition of Infection, the survival podcast. Infection is your weekly source for the latest news in and around the video game industry, with a little bit of common sense political twist turned in here and there as well. My name is Nick Craig. You can give me a follow on Twitter at Nicholas M. Craig. You can follow us on Twitter at InfectionCast, or check out my website, nickcraig.com, and download the Wilmington's Morning News podcast. You can also visit our website at infectionpodcast.com. Joining me as he does each and every week from the great state of Idaho, Brian with an I, Aldridge. Hey, Brian, how's it going?
I'm doing very well. Got a little. Our baby is sick at home right now, so that's something. Hopefully, he's going to be recovered. He's got the RSV. You know, I've never heard of RSV before this year.
Neither had I.
Now, yeah, so now that's the thing. But we went and got him tested a couple days ago.
Isn't it? From what I understand, it's just a variation of like a flu, right?
But yeah, it's something like that. It is a virus. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
New diseases.
So we'll see.
Magically.
Yeah. So he's got a kind of a raspy voice and everything.
Ooh, I like that.
We'll probably be staying home for Christmas. Yeah, he'll be talking like this before.
I was gonna say it's Alex Jones doing a little programming.
But yeah, so we'll see how he is. But we might end up having to stay home and not visit family for Christmas, just because we don't want to pass that along to my older dad and other families. So, but if you want to find me, you can get me at Boise Computer on Twitter, or at Brian Aldridge on Gab, Parler, Gutter, Truth Social, and whatever ones pop up and go away in the near future. Of course, if you want to check out my blog, biteoftech.com, and as Nick said, go check out our website, go to infectionpodcast.com. And if you go to the upper right-hand side, you can join our server on Discord, which is the perfect place if you need to get a hold of us. Maybe you need to get a link to us that you think would be relevant for the show. Just toss it in the news channel. Or if you want to play some of our 11 ARC servers that we currently have running, or Conan server. We have that going as well. Have some activity going on that one. So if you're interested in either one of those games, jump into our Discord server, and we'll have links of how to connect to each of those servers. So maybe over the Christmas holiday, you have an opportunity to play some games and do it in an environment where you get a little bit of a rapid leveling, which helps out a lot if you don't have a lot of time to game, especially with those ones. If you want to watch the live show, you can do that through Twitch or YouTube, or if you go to the lower right-hand side of the website, we've got all our podcast forms, which once the show is done, we upload the audio form of the show to one of those links, and it's a great way that if you don't have a lot of bandwidth, or maybe you want to listen on the go or at work, those are the perfect ways to do it. And if you are going to do that, that means that our show notes for that episode have been uploaded to the website as well, and it's kind of the perfect companion to listening. There's an audio and video play in there, but you can also click the video links. Maybe there's a YouTube video or something we played during the live show that you wanted to see and you only had the opportunity to hear it. Jump into our show notes, and you can check the source material, all the links for videos, everything that kind of accompanies the show that we refer to throughout is right there on that page. Makes it really easy. If you want to support this show, you can do that through the support menu up top, or infectionpodcast.com/support.
Yes, sir. Appreciate everybody hitting us up with the support and continued support as we approach Christmas here in, looking at my trusty calendar, 5 whole days, Brian, or 4, depending on how you do your math. I think it's...
Or what part of the world you're in.
Yeah, what part of the world you're in as well. Brian, I think we need to start off with a huge story in the video game industry, not just because of the things that we follow, but literally a monumental story surrounding Epic and the Federal Trade Commission. They have been hit with a $500 million fine, and they agreed to this $500 million fine over what the FTC, the federal government, calls Fortnite's failure to, quote, protect children's privacy. So taking a look at the details in the article here, the U.S. Federal Trade Commission has agreed to this $520 million fine for Epic and Fortnite. They claim that the company violated the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, or the COPPA, and used what they call dark patterns. Which, Brian, you were well, let's see, you were in the tech space for years. Then you were doing some video game development. Now you're in kind of the programming side of it. Have you ever heard of dark patterns before? Were you aware of that term before this? Because I'd never heard
No, I mean, I've not heard this term. I understand. I kind of understood the concept of what they were talking about, but I didn't realize that there was a whole page, dedicated to it on Wikipedia. And it does make sense. I always figured it was just bad design, not malicious planning. And one thing is, they have a number of examples in here, but I put a link to the Wikipedia just to kind of give people an idea of what this really means. And a lot of this is things that they do intentionally to either trick or pressure you into doing something you probably didn't intend to do, right? And so they have examples of patterns like privacy zuckering, which has to do with like Mark Zuckerberg's Meta and Facebook, and tricking users into sharing more information than they intend to. The bait and switch, which is one that you hear from, that's not a new term.
No.
Confirm shaming, driving people to act, which we see a lot, whether through a newsletter, just shaming people into accepting. Misdirection, which a lot of times you'll see kind of spammy links doing these type of things. Roach Motel, which I hadn't heard of, a trammeled net design provides an easier, straightforward path to get in, but a difficult path to get out. So like once you get in there, they make it hard to get out of it.
This is the old adage of why people are afraid to sign up for 60 or 30-day free trials, because you sign up for the free trial.
Canceling is a pain.
Is a huge pain in the ass and sometimes nearly impossible. And it's like, oh, you have to cancel within 30 seconds of agreeing to this. You have to cancel the auto renew for your 6-month subscription. It's just so. I was not aware of the term dark pattern, but obviously, bait and switch is the most relevant, at least common sense term for this. So there's two different settlements that add up to this $520 million, over $500 million. Epic will pay $270 million in penalties for violating the Child Privacy Protection Act. That's going to be paid to the FTC, to the federal government. So nice little payday there for somebody at the FTC, $275 million. The second part of it, $245 million, and this is kind of the undercurrent story that I don't think is getting as much play. It's not in the headline at PC Gamer, which I was surprised to see, is that in this $245 million second part of it, they have to refund consumers. Those that claim, and I guess and how this process is going to work is going to be good luck. Anybody that fell into Fortnite's quote dark patterns and billing practices will have the opportunity to receive some sort of refund. And it's noted here that this is the largest amount that the FTC has ever obtained in a video game matter. So this is a massive, massive amount of money. Who is eligible for this? How this works? I don't know.
That's the thing. How do you prove that? Because I've fallen where in Fortnite, I've accidentally, because of the way their menus work, purchased something I didn't intend to purchase. And that's really what this comes down to. Is they made it to where it's not like I'm spending money, but I've had V-Bucks go zoop, gone for some stupid thing that I didn't intend to because of how they made their menu system. And that's what they're really making this is they had it to where if you hold down certain keys together or in loading screens, you're pressing certain keys and then it's purchasing things on the way out. It's just, these are the kind of things that they're talking about where I know it's happened to me. I didn't make a big deal of it because, a couple hundred V-Bucks. I didn't mean to buy that. Whoops, it's now in my
You're a well-to-do, you're a wealthy man, Brian. All right, a couple hundred V-Bucks is no problem.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't too worried about it, but for these kids, I can understand how when you give your child, like I will give them, okay, you have 2,000 V-Bucks. You can afford to purchase, your Fortnite pass or whatever it is. And if they click something that then doesn't allow them to purchase the thing that they're supposed to go purchase, then the kid's going to be falling apart. or I'm gonna have to pitch out more money out of my pocket to make it so that they can buy the thing they intended to purchase. And I'll be looking at them saying, "Yeah, right, you didn't mean to do that. I know you clicked that on purpose," and then you ground them for a couple weeks, and then that's how this all goes.
So there's a lot in here. Epic released a statement in regards to this saying, no developer creates a game with the intention of ending up here. Saying that written decades ago that don't specify how gaming ecosystems should operate. The laws have not changed, but their application has evolved, and long-standing industry practices are no longer enough. Epic, they continue to go on to talk about some of the things that they do, including their hold-to-buy system so that users don't accidentally click something. So their claim is...
Why not confirm everything on a purchase, right? Why not make it to where if you click, I want to buy this, have something pop up that then you have to hold down for 3 seconds saying, okay, I did it. That's a confirmation.
No, because I don't think they're interested in that. They're not. And because that's what you would do. Like, for example, I'm getting ready to travel, so I turned on my Nintendo Switch for the first time in probably 6 months. And I saw, but this is how stupid I am. So I haven't used my Switch in months, and I see on Slick Deals that there's a bunch of Nintendo games on sale. So I'm like, oh, perfect. Let me go spend some money on a platform I won't use. Nevertheless, I bought Final Fantasy VII, which was on sale for like $8. And I had to go through the Nintendo store to do it. And turns out I already had a card on file. I must have purchased something in the past. So I had to go to the Nintendo store, find the game,
Zelda,
click.
Right?
I know, because I have the physical copies. I don't know how they had my card. I had to have used. I bought something at some point. So I had to. I'd buy it. I had to click that I wanted to buy it. Then I had to verify my payment information. It just showed the last 4 digits and was zip code. Then I had to confirm the purchase. So it was like 3 or 4 steps. I guess the way that Epic probably skirts around this, and they do say that if you're buying V-Bucks using your credit card, there is a confirmation screen.
There's steps. Yeah, that's a pain. That's a pain to do sometimes. And you're going through Xbox's, for instance, payment service.
Yes.
And so you have to go through all the steps there. But once you have the V-Bucks in your account, they make it overly easy to purchase something.
And here's the thing. I don't think they're alone in this. I'm not saying they should get a free pass or that it's okay because others do it. But this is, as Epic says, this is kind of how the gaming industry currently goes, and this is how the ecosystem operates. It's the same thing in many other games as well. In terms of the child privacy, they note that, quote, developers who create a teen-rated or mature-rated game can no longer assume that it won't be deemed to be directed to children, according to the United States Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. That is, Fortnite is rated teen and was aimed at an older audience, but the one it found was younger than expected. So they're kind of what they're saying there is, hey, we went through ESRB, we got our game rated, and online play is never rated. That's always part of it. Online gaming is always NR, most times it's NR, or just doesn't have anything at all. So that is that's kind of their claim for that. They talk about their cabined accounts, which you talked about last week or a couple weeks ago, and things that you can do there. Sweeney put a pretty lengthy kind of thread and a whole bunch of tweets on Twitter saying, quote, Epic signed a settlement with the FTC covering their concerns with Fortnite item shop features, refunds, and parental permissions. Here's details on how we've been involving Fortnite since 2017, as well as a thought all game developers should consider. So, and linking to their statement saying developers should dig into this topic as this settlement reflects on the state of the art American regulatory practices. For example, now applying principles similar to UK's age-appropriate design code to voice chat defaults. In-app purchasing is also a hot topic, with rigorous expectations of affirmative express consent for purchases made both in real money and paid virtual currency. So there's as you can imagine, Tim Sweeney's probably pretty pissed. I mean, they're going to have to shell out $500 million here, which is, Fortnite makes a good amount of money, right? They make billions of dollars, but they're not Microsoft or Apple, where they're making tens of hundreds of billions of dollars a year. They're making a couple billion. They're doing very well. I'm not taking anything that away. But $500 million is a lot of money for Epic.
Huge amount of money, yeah.
Yeah. Now, is it going to sink the company? No. Is it going to end the game? No. But for them, you're talking about a game that makes about $3.5 to $4 billion a year in profit. That's a significant amount of money.
Yep.
So now I guess, go ahead.
And that's where I think with this, it's going to, and I guess the goal is to enact them to change.
Yes.
There will be definite changes to the way that things work in Epic or in Fortnite. Fortnite is one of the leading trendsetters, I would say, for video games. Usually the way they do something, other games replicate and imitate. And so I think that this will, not that I like the fact that the FTC is charging like this, but sometimes to get a company to take something seriously, this is what they're doing. And I personally I prefer making it harder to purchase something and make some standards, since there are no standards in the video game industry of how transactions are supposed to go, so you don't do accidental ones. Show them, use the examples of some of the other ones. I think Nintendo goes overboard, as you say. We're talking about earlier. They go a little bit too far to where it's kind of a pain to purchase anything through some of the stores. But make it to where at least there's a simple confirmation, because that's one thing that Fortnite has done in the past, is kind of simplified. I mean, think of how Battle Royales before Fortnite. It was PC-based, ASWD keys. You couldn't possibly think of doing some of these things with a controller and having it play seamlessly and quick like it does. Right? They came in and simplified the whole game down to something where you can play with a controller and you're competing with people that are playing with mouse and keyboard. Do the same thing with the payment system. Simplify it down to where there's not going to be the mistakes. If someone purchases something, they can't really contest it because you gave them plenty of opportunity to back out up to that point, but don't overcomplicate it. Just put a little bit of thought into it, and I think that we'll all be happy with the result, because, for me, I don't want it to where my kids are clicking, because especially with our 7-year-old clicking around in Fortnite, he's liable to purchase anything. So he's like, well, I didn't mean to buy that. Yeah, right. I've had this conversation with, yeah, right. You didn't mean to buy that. You were sitting there staring at it, and now it's in your inventory. Who knows whether or not he intended to, because he'll just sit there and click around like crazy.
It's terrible. How did this happen? I don't understand.
Yeah, I need to have steps to where I can say, hey, look, and I can pull up the video because we have cameras in our house. Here's you clicking this menu option. Here's you clicking this menu option and holding the button down for 3 seconds. And you're telling me you didn't mean to purchase it. Well, right now it's like I was on the page and I hit this button and now it's in my inventory. I don't have my V-Bucks, Dad. I need more.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I guess, so I think there's a couple things to take away from this. One is maybe a bit of a warning call to other games, because again, Epic and Fortnite are not alone in these practices. Specifically, mobile gaming is, I think, where this is a bigger problem, because that's where
very predatory there.
Is that now it's a little bit better on iOS because those payments have to go through the App Store, and Apple will require a confirmation, but that's only if you're paying with physical currency. Once you've bought a digital
any
currency,
kind of in-game currency,
then those things are just completely out the window, and it's just complete Mad Max style. So that's what I think is going to be interesting here to see, is what do these other developers that know damn well they're doing the same thing, do they maybe quietly release their new updates and put some changes in there so that they don't find themselves in this. It seems like to me Epic is being kind of made out to be the martyr here, and that's fine. They can afford to do it, and they have led the charge on a lot of it. But overall, I think this is probably a good thing for the industry as a whole.
Well, and this is something even just in like a mobile game, Raid Shadow Legends. I've mentioned that I've played that before. But they have they have it to where you can buy these gems. Now you can earn them in game slowly through various means, but there's screens to where I've accidentally bumped my phone and it sit there and purchased a worthless, refresh this timer, refresh the store listing. I don't need to refresh the store listing 10 times. But because something touched it and it just spent a ton of gems. That's the kind of stuff that, I feel like they do that on purpose and make it to where, or if you hand, a kid gets a hold of your phone, he can clear out your whole, and people can spend $30, $40, $50 on those gems just to get packs of them. That's the kind of stuff I look at where, okay, if you're going to do it, put up a confirmation box so that me bumping my phone at the wrong time because I grabbed it while the game was open and I grabbed it with my hands and then all of a sudden it's just repeat purchasing because my fingers held down on it. Who does that? There's no reason for doing it, and that's that predatory type of behavior. Yep, absolutely. So,
yeah, I'm sure there will be. I'm sure there'll be a lot more on this, and I'm very curious to see how they handle this payback or refund. If it's going to be like some sort of class action or how that's going to work. If there's an application process, what a mess that's going to be for paperwork wise for people at Epic. But play stupid games, win stupid prizes, Brian.
Yep. Well, and hopefully they learn from it. So another thing from Epic is they are delisting most of their Unreal games. For instance, the original Unreal games, kind of what the engine is based off of. But except for Unreal Tournament 3, they're going to be making free. But a lot of those older games, they're going to be delisting. Now, they're going to be playable still, but a lot of them. But some of the online services that were provided, because they're going to be switching off the out-of-date online services and servers for some of these older games, like Rock Band, those Unreal games, and they're moving to this new Epic Online services that Fortnite uses. Now, this is something we talked about as far as a service that they're providing to a lot of other engines and games that people can incorporate the friends lists and all of this that they've made. But some of the ones that are using all the old services, they're going to be shutting down, and it will impact probably the multiplayer, some of the multiplayer features and things like that, where you can still play local multiplayer, offline, or solo in those games.
I'll tell you this. It's amazing that they still had the multiplayer online for Unreal Tournament 2003. I mean, that is... I don't think you will find many games that still are providing
going
first-party multiplayer. Now, there's plenty of games that have now self-hosted and community-run servers, but I don't know if you can find many games or if any other games that have had their servers online from their provider since 2003. That's remarkable. They should be commended for that. You're talking about 20 years of keeping an online service up for a game. That's remarkable.
Well, and the only reason that it's going away is because they're stopping using that whole system altogether.
Yeah,
and going to something new. And imagine them trying to code in this new technology into such old software. There's probably a lot of people that would be unwilling to update their software to the new version of these games, and so then they would be locked out anyways.
Yeah. So they did talk. They as you mentioned, they are going to be bringing back Unreal Tournament 3's multiplayer through their new Epic online services. Not sure when that's going to be. And even though that game's old. That game has been out since 2007. So the fact that they're looking at bringing that back is, again, just goes to show you they're obviously committed to this stuff, because a game at that point, they have no commitment and responsibility to keep that online. At least from my vantage point, they don't. Nobody else does. Why are they any different?
Well, and here's something interesting. It says download. Now this is talking about the Unreal Tournament 3 Steam page was updated earlier today with the new name, description, and functionality. It says download and launch from where you want to play, play with who you want. The Steam page now says Unreal Tournament X supports cross-play between all PC players, whether they're logged into their Steam, Epic Store, or GOG accounts. No microtransactions and no strings attached. This is a fully featured, award-winning first-person shooter you fell in love with, completely free. So,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so they're still having that. They'll still have that go on.
Interesting.
Somehow.
Cool.
Pretty cool.
Well, there you go. Merry Christmas.
Yes. Congratulations.
When
all right.
Was there a date on this when they're doing this?
Well, I think it's 2023 is what I saw is when it's fully. So January 24th, 2023. So next month, just over a month from now.
All right. Well, there you go. Be advised.
Yeah, so be prepared. All right. Do you care where we go after this?
Yeah. I would like to talk about this Marvel Avengers spokesperson. I'm not sure that many people saw about this, but of course, Brian, the crackpot journalists over at Kotaku were on the case. Anytime that they can get in there and try and ruin somebody's life, they will be the first. They'll be the first knocking at the door. Marvel Avengers spokesperson has been removed after offensive tweets were unearthed. This story has been out a couple of weeks, and the guy who was apparently doing, I guess he was kind of like a community manager, might be the term to kind of use for him. His name is Brian Wagner, and of course, in typical leftist fashion, somebody went digging through his old Twitter account old Twitter accounts and found some really salacious tweets, Brian, which I'd like to read to the audience just to show you how crazy these tweets are. And now, I'll remind you, this is circa 2011 through about 2014. Quote, I am not a woman hater, a misogynist, or a bigot, but I really don't like the idea of a female Thor. I love strong woman characters, but not this. Not sure how that's controversial at all. Literally saying, I'm not a woman hater, misogynist, or bigot, but in the minds of those people, you are. It's days like today. This is December 20th. Literally this day, back in 2013, nearly 10 years ago, saying, quote, it's days like today when I'm reminded how my Twitter feed is full of leftist bigots trying to make straw man arguments about right-wingers. That's accurate. It's been the same thing since December 2013. Nothing's changed. And he goes on to talk about censorship, makes a couple of Twitter jokes in 2014 about how he's not racist because he owns a color TV. Says be there or be homo. Just again, edgy internet, not even edgy internet jokes, just internet jokes of the era 2011 through 2013. And
here, listen to this.
This is a bridge too far.
I'm also getting super tired of being called racist whenever the subject of border security comes up as a default label. Okay, that's true. I think that I think that everything he's saying is just because he's not saying. Because imagine all the things we read from game developers that were currently working on a game about our president at the time, about our politics. We read all kinds of ridiculous things, saying that we were calling us people that think like us all kinds of names. And there was no issues from their HR departments, because it was their opinions. We could choose whether or not we followed. Some of them I just unfollowed because I didn't feel like hearing about politics more than about the game that they were supposedly developing or, being a spokesperson for.
Excuse me.
Sorry, I was making sure it wasn't me.
No, that was on my end. This guy, his cardinal sin is that he apologized. You never can apologize to these individuals or to these groups. Never. Yeah. It works. You know how many times it works, Brian? 0% of the time. Never. Yep. So he puts out this tweet. Over the weekend, old tweets I wrote before my time at Crystal resurfaced, and I apologize and take full accountability for the hurt they caused my followers. Just a bunch of blabbering bullshit. And then Crystal Dynamics says, quote, this is the company he works for. Putting this out on Twitter, I'll mind you. The company he works for. It's incredibly disappointing to see language and views from employees that don't align with our studio values. We apologize to our community and coworkers who are rightfully upset by the content. Brian will no longer be a studio spokesperson or communicating about studio projects. So offensive, saying about how he thinks a female Thor sucks and how leftist bigots make straw man arguments about right-wingers and how he called somebody a homo on Twitter.
Well, he said, I love my trainer, no homo. That's the kind of jokes he was making. Early 2000s jokes that were in. But that was the thing. Those are the jokes at the time. People were like, "Oh yeah, no homo." It was just common.
You know what's so funny about this is the moral high ground that groups like Crystal Dynamics. I don't even know what the hell these people do. Besides make Tomb Raider and Marvel games that I'm sure nobody plays, is the moral high ground, Brian, of, oh my God, we are just were so deeply offended by these comments. It's typical response of throwing stones from a glass house, and that's exactly what these people do. It's exactly what they do. The idea that anything is the idea that any of these comments were so outlandish, so unbelievable, and so offensive is just horseshit. I mean, it's just plain and simple. None of these things are, these don't even, Brian, I'm not a fan of cancel culture. Sometimes, while I don't agree with it, you can at least understand it from a company standpoint. And then there's situations like this one and the situation with Tripwire Interactive where it just doesn't make any damn sense. There's no semblance of logic in the statements. If the guy was out on Twitter saying he wanted to kill, people and wanted them to die and all these terrible things, all right, maybe. But saying that he doesn't like a female protagonist in a movie and now he needs to lose his whole, now, oh my God, we apologize to our community and coworkers. Why? For tweets that he wrote back in 2011, 11 years ago? Hop off your high horse. This, I continue to stay by, Brian. This stuff will come to an end. This only goes in one path. This ricochets back in the other direction at breakneck speeds because this shit only can go on for so long. You can only continue down this path for so long.
Well, and one thing I do want to point out is the person who wrote the Kotaku article does kind of call it out a little bit.
What?
Towards to the end of the article, saying, he saying that these were, they were not great comments, ignored at the time, but but they say it's nonsense. The response from Crystal is kind of nonsense. And they defend him a little bit, say people say and do stupid things, hold awful views, make nasty jokes. He says, I know because I do. We all do. He kind of almost defends him to a point and just says, I wish, he would have just come out and said, I was being stupid. Didn't really think about what I was saying, and move, treat it like that. I just feel like they're not quite 100% saying, people shouldn't be
find this awful.
Gone after about this. But he is saying that the response was a little overboard. Just have the guy say, what I said stuff that I just, was kind of stupid. It wasn't thoughtful or whatever, and then moved on from there. Don't pull his position. These things are 10 years old, and I think what the left is scared of. Here's my issue with it. Today, up until recently on Twitter. You could say all kinds of things and your side would be the one defended. People would look at you and say, yeah, that's right. But you know what? Tomorrow, you don't always know that that's going to be the case. And so these people who have been in the place with the pitchforks and saying, you can't say that, you can't say this, need to be really careful because these things do switch around sometimes. And how you treat the others, think about, well, do I want them treating me like that someday? Do I want it to where when my view is maybe frowned upon? Because look at how some of the things with the trans activists and groomers and all this are kind of turning a little bit, where before it's like you weren't allowed to say a word because that was hateful. But then some of the crowd is starting to wake up because of how many bounds they've overstepped, right? Well, at what point then are any of the things that they're doing currently going to be things that are despicable again, right? As far as having kids go to drag shows and touch fake penises and things like this on stage, or fake boobs, or all these things are simulated craziness. That's the kind of stuff that there will be a point where they'll go through your tweets and saying, yeah, I support this. I like that. That's great. Okay, you're going to be losing your job someday for that once the allowed view changes to these corporations. And do you want that to happen? Or say, hey, at the time I got caught up on what was happening. Now that I look at it, I don't think that's a great thing. I'm sorry, and move on from that. But if you set the precedent and says, well, you have to be delisted, you have to be totally taken off of Twitter, you have to lose your job, you can't have any kind of a job again that anyone knows about, that automatic response is going to hurt him in the end because there's going to be a change at some point to where you'll be the enemy and don't don't be scared of how they're going to treat you if it's going to be the same as what you treated others.
There's a couple of things there, and I couldn't agree more with your statements. Eventually, because again, you start down this path that only progressively gets worse. Eventually, now everybody will be unemployable, because if these comments make him unemployable, Brian, then I don't believe I'm ever capable of holding a job for the rest of my life. I mean, if those statements from him are the most outlandish things that are going to cost him his job,
he said online,
career,
that they could find.
I might as well start a shotgun, because my life's over. I mean, and that's the thing with this is this. So now, if we follow this trend, you're gonna have now made an entire generation of people unemployable, presumably. Because again, if you're gonna follow this and follow it fairly, then everybody who's had any sort of not even edgy tweets, half of these aren't even edgy. They're just his opinion that the left is a bunch of bigoted whatevers that make straw man arguments. That's not a controversial statement. It's not even talking. It's just calling out what it is, saying he doesn't like a female, how he thinks a female Thor would be stupid. How is that controversial?
It's opinion.
Who cares?
Yeah, it's opinion.
But it's not even a crazy opinion. It's not even an outlandish opinion. I can understand somebody having an outlandish opinion, but when you don't, so first of all, obviously somebody, and it's always left-wing activist groups, were digging through these guys' tweets from 2011, because you don't just stumble upon this guy's tweets from a decade ago. So obviously somebody's either put up to this, or this is one of these gaming unions or one of these so-called journalists that is, destroying people's lives for the greater good, so they can virtue signal how much of a fantastic progressive that they are. This stuff is just sick. I mean, it's just really, honest to God, sick.
Well, and that's the thing is, I kind of want to point out the last paragraph of this article, because he said, let's not forget us, the Brain Gallery. He hasn't been fired, as in quotes. He says, we don't have a clue if he deserves to be fired or if he's a champion for good these days. So, they're saying, stop pretend like we care if this person you've never heard of before today is something they did a decade ago that you didn't notice, gets to keep his job. And he ends it with, we don't know what's best in every situation. If he's bad to work with, then Crystal should fire him. But, it's not our point to say whether or not he should be fired for something, because you don't know. It's there, and that's where I was most surprised about this article, because it's very opposite of what you see from Kotaku sometimes. And maybe they're trying to pull back a little bit. Or it could be just this particular person. Yeah, has a little bit of a straightforward and ability to see reality for what it is. Because if you're willing to push everybody else into the firing squad, right? Well, just what about when you're the last person in front and the next one's you, is kind of the mentality I look at.
Yes.
And this guy's kind of looking at it, well, this could be me, is what I kind of get out of this. He's like, we've done this. We've all done this. So, like, what do you guys quit saying he needs to lose his job, because someday that'll be you losing your job for something stupid.
Yeah, and then there'll be the moral outrage of, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. Oh, it's so terrible. Because that's how the left always operates. Falcon is in the chat saying, where is the comedy industry now? You can't make fun of anything anymore. It's almost non-existent, Falcon, unless you are somebody like Dave Chappelle, and even him, but he's popular enough to kind of curb off or push off the tide of people trying to cancel him. Unless you're literally like Dave Chappelle or one of these other big guys, you're nothing. Like Josh Denny's a great example of a guy who was on Food Network. It was mainstream, and now all of a sudden he's being deemed as a crazy, radical, right-wing comedy guy because he just makes edgy jokes, because that's what comedy is. Comedy is supposed to make you feel a little bit uncomfortable, and now he's now being deemed a Nazi in some circles for making jokes that are funny.
And I want to point out something about Dave Chappelle. A lot of people don't know this. Do you know what his mom does? Hey, I know that, but do you know what his mom does?
No idea.
So she works at a university in African American studies.
Oh,
right. And if you look at what he does, I think personally what he has done for a long time, especially with the Chappelle Show, was kind of put some of those topics in the mainstream. And he's very much left, right? But when he comes at it, he doesn't come at it as a crazy left person. He'll come out at it, or maybe he's going after talking about women. He'll talk about trans people, and he'll say something that seems really, really crazy. But then he'll say something on the total opposite side that kind of brings you back to the middle, right? That's kind of his style. He'll say something outrageous, and then he'll say something like that's just, at the end of the joke that just kind of makes you think the opposite. And for him, I think a lot of it is he does kind of change the culture and influence what people think. But for him, he has the ability to do that because he's a minority. Imagine someone who's not a minority going up and trying to do any of the similar style of comedy that he does. Well, would not happen. You could not.
As Falcon said, it doesn't exist. Yeah. You can't make it. It doesn't happen.
He can get away with it, but there's very few people that could ever do anything close to what he does.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. And it eventually leads to, as I mentioned, with the video game industry, it just leads to its demise. It will just be over. These industries will just collapse because they will have eaten themselves from within. They are a literal cancer of themselves, and eventually, and the people that have called it out the whole time will be the ones that are there to pick up the smoldering rubble when it's all said and done. So I thought that was pretty rich. I got another story here, Brian, I want to cover just quickly, kind of in the same vein. Stanford University, a institution, one of the biggest and most prestigious institutions in the United States. Yeah, institution of higher learning, as they call it. They've released a new list of harmful language as part of their plan to, quote, eliminate many forms of harmful language, including words that are racist, violent, and biased. According to their website, the program is called the Elimination of Harmful Language Initiative, or the EHLI program. And now they have added the word American to their list. So the word American, that is titled under the section imprecise language, and they say that the guide advises readers to replace the term American with U.S. citizen. Their justification saying, American often refers to people of the United States only, thereby insulating that the United States is the most important country in the Americas, which it is. The packet says, noting that there are 42 other countries between North and South America. So you should not be using that word anymore.
Well, including... I mean, the issue is Mexico is also part of America.
Of course.
But...
They call themselves, but they don't call themselves
Mexicans.
Mexicans, correct?
Because we are the United States of America. Yeah, Canadian America. I mean, well, they're not Canadian Americans. They could be.
They call themselves Canadians. Canada, you've got people from Brazil who call themselves Brazilians.
Brazilians. I mean, and we are from the USA, United States of America. It's not Americans.
It's really not too much of a stretch, but this is what your student loan forgiveness, your $10,000 student loan forgiveness is going to pay back the loans to educations of higher learning like this, so they can write this bullshit and jam it down susceptible 18, 19, and 20-year-old college students that are paying $65,000 to $125,000 a year to get an education. So thought that kind of fit in nice with our last topic of hateful speech and everything that's ongoing.
Well, and as these lists gets updated, like how were you supposed to know 10 years ago that American was going to be on the list of prohibited words?
Well, Brian,
they're going to cancel you tomorrow. What you wrote 10 years ago because you didn't know American was going to be a racist word.
Well, maybe you should have maybe you should have looked at your own biases earlier, Brian, and then you would have been able to circumvent these. Maybe if you actually cared,
seen it coming.
You should have seen it coming, but obviously you don't care because that's exactly what this is. So we'll have a link to that. It's just a completely ridiculous article over at the New York Post. I'll be covering it tomorrow morning on my radio show as well. I'm sure we'll have a good time with that list coming up. What else are we tracking this week, Brian, ahead of Christmas? Pretty busy, I'll know, before we get into it. This not normally to have this much going on right before Christmas.
There's a lot going on. So let's talk about some Microsoft news here really quick and some things that are going to be coming down the pike, probably in some of the games coming out soon. Microsoft has filed a patent for displaying personalized ads in games, and this is something we've kind of seen. We talked about this, I think, a number of months ago, of the possibility of having ads play inside of a video game, maybe on a racing game, changing the ads that are on the boards, or in a sports game, or having an ad playing up on some sort of a screen somewhere. But this is something that they're looking at doing. Of course, it would have to have an internet connection sometimes if these are going to be dynamic ads, but provides a personalized content for unintrusive online gaming experience is what they're saying this is going to do. I think that because they're kind of going towards trying to make gaming cheaper, similar to how YouTube has all these free videos, that you're paying through by watching ads. Ways to bring down the cost, or, one thing that, let's talk about this, is they're looking at having possibly a cheaper ad-supported Xbox Game Pass. Now, there was a poll. If you look at the image, I think it's in Spanish, but I did run it through a translator program so you can see what this is actually asking. And there's an image of it must be over in Spain or something because it's in euros, but it was in Spanish. So here's what they put. They said, consider these two hypothetical video game subscription options. Subscription to video game monthly price is €2.99. One user, so you can choose between console and PC, and play the own titles they have 6 months or more. Includes online multiplayer and advertising before departure. It's download only, so it wouldn't be streamed games. Or having one for $21.99, 5 users can use any combination of PC, Xbox, console, mobile, TV, more than 100 games, which is probably the whole Xbox Game Pass. He plays with his own titles on the day of launch, would be allowed this. Play your own titles that have 6 months or more. So I'm assuming these are not new titles. So the first one, you would have ones that have been out for 6 months or more for the wording. Get the normal discounts, has EA Play. You can play on your phone through the cloud, multiplayer, and that one would have no advertising, and you could stream and download. So for $2.99 versus $21.99, you would pretty much get some of the older titles, no EA Play, and it would be a download only, no cloud as far as streaming, and you wouldn't have access to the full library.
What I would love to see here is something in the middle. So let's call it $25 for Game Pass. Ultimate. Well, I would love to see a $10, $11, $12 option. And by the way,
$12 with ads.
$12 with ads. Give me the whole thing, and just throw some ads on it. I don't mind having. For example, if I'm going to stream a game, I don't mind watching a 30-second to a 60-second pre-roll ad. Here's the thing: this is not a wild idea, and if anything, Microsoft would actually be providing a better service than many of these other streaming platforms. Where, for example, with Hulu, you pay $9 a month, and you still have to watch a plethora of ads.
Yeah,
right. The whole thing is still still loaded with ads.
Well, and I think they're kind of framing it like this because they just got the patent. But what I would rather see is in the game, seamlessly built into the experience, have the advertising, just like with movies and television.
Sure.
People don't realize it, but if you watch closely and look at what you're watching on TV or television, a lot of those advertisers are placing products in there to where you're like, oh, well, everybody uses Jiffy, right? Or everybody uses this detergent, uses this laptop. You notice they're always using a Microsoft tablet or a laptop. Well, there's a reason for that. Have it to where your video games, make it to where you make video games advanced enough to where they can change. Have it to where, and here's this is an idea that just came to me. Why not make it when you develop a video game that you can build into it? Here's places that product placement can happen so that branding and things can be placed inside the video game in real time based on what they've inserted, whether it's an object that gets put into it And then that's part of the service, to where just like in TV, just like in movies, product placement can happen, and it's not something that has to be so static and set beforehand.
Well, you're describing...
That's a better idea.
You're describing Google Ads on a website. You put a Google ad banner, and then when you go to the website, Google puts an ad in.
Make it seamless into the game. Like when they're drinking a soda, what soda are they drinking in the video game, in the cutscene? That's the level I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think that is the eventual path, and I think the first example is exactly what Falcon mentions, which is billboards in games. That's a great,
that's the easiest way
to start
right away.
And see, see
or
if there's an interest.
Any sports game, all the ads that are along the outside of the arena, up for baseball, up on the boards, whatever that is, sell those things. But but that's the thing, is the developer's going to have to make it to where, just like I'm saying, there's a place for that you can then inject it into.
So there's a couple of problems with that, and I don't disagree with you. That is the future. They already have that now. Like if you play a Madden game or a FIFA game, you'll see ads and sponsors, but those are one time, those are the game is baked in. Those are static ads, so they don't update. So then you as an advertiser
make them dynamic.
hefty bill. Yep. So the question is though, Brian, how do you make them dynamic without an internet connection? Or maybe if you don't have an internet connection, they're just stock and standard, or they're not even ads. They're just what have you called them? Placeholders, I guess, built fake ads like Grand Theft Auto would make. And then how do you handle?
I mean, if they want to, whenever you put out an update for the game, you can shift out, because a lot of these are going to be games that you have the ability to play online. Most of them will have internet connections, but especially for the ones that are being cloud, like there's no excuse not to be able to put them in those. But have it to where when you do a game update, those set of ads get shifted out with the next game update. To where the advertising is paying, hey, do you want to be the offline ad provider for this game? That's a heftier fee. If you want it to where if they don't have access to the internet, your ad always shows. But if they have access to the internet, yours will be in a rotation. Upsell it.
Saul Greatman saying advertisers are too scared to have their product associated with the prostitute murder simulator. How dare you call that GTA? I find that quite offensive. Falcon says, who isn't connected these days? Falcon, most people are. I just wonder how you handle that.
I have an ad blocker. Is it going to be blank? I have a network ad blocker.
Do you run AdGuard? That's what I was going to ask you. Yeah.
I have a pie hole built into my whole network.
Yeah, so I have an AdGuard built into my network, and it's the same thing. And it blocks those ads. And that's what I was saying is, and that should be a relatively easy thing to do. And I guess it's no different than if, you go to a website and there's a problem loading the Google ad, the ad just doesn't get displayed. So then they have to come up with those cookie cutter ads. I think that is the future. Specifically, I think where you see it and where I'd want to see it first would be free-to-play games. If you're going to give me a game for free and you want to load it up with some product placement, doesn't really bother me. However, if you're going to charge me $70 for a title, Brian, I start kind of getting well
because it's going to turn into the streaming services that supposedly we were paying so you didn't have to have ads, or cable TV, which started as a service where you didn't really have ads for most channels, and they had just as many ads in the end as over the air.
And cable TV, you stole my analogy, because that's exactly what cable TV is now, which is, you pay an exorbitant amount of money to have access to the channels and then watch commercials over and over and over.
And a quarter of the time.
Yeah, which is that's not cable TV's fault. They buy the channels from providers. The providers are the ones that load up with
the network providers' fault. Yeah.
Well, it's not the network providers. It's how they generate their revenue. So I get it. Yeah. But when you've got me paying full price for something, that's when if you want to offer me a deal, for example, you know who does this really well? Amazon. They do it with their Amazon Fire tablets. They offer one that is dirt cheap, like $29. And it's got the lock screen is always dynamic ads. And they sell those ads to books and publishers and movies and all that stuff, so that when you turn on your Amazon Fire tablet, it's got an ad. Now, if you don't want to deal with that,
you have the option when you buy that. Yeah,
correct.
Exactly.
You can spend 30 or 40 more bucks and not get it. So maybe, Brian, if you want to offer me GTA at $30, with those ads, or $70 without them.
And later, if I want to unlock the ad-free version because I'm tired of it, then give me the option to get out of the added version and make it an ad-free version. But then you're kind of like the mobile transaction, the free-to-play games, where you can, pay to turn off all the ads. That seems totally legitimate to me. I don't mind having a free game that for $5 I can turn off all the ads for life in a game if I find it fun enough.
Well, so let me say this and I'll go back to GTA. If GTA is $70 and has billboards with ads on it in game, I don't care. That literally
They'll make it
does
seamless enough.
And that's it. That's going to be the key with it, is making and honestly, if it's seamless enough, and I don't even know, because that's how most that good
just
advertising,
like TV, right?
Yeah, good advertising is subliminal, so I shouldn't recognize it anyway, or at least largely subliminal. And if that's the case, then I don't have a problem with it. But what I don't want, and for this, this already happens. For example, if you play Forza and you load up the cars that you can drive, Ford is paying to have their logo in on whatever EV Mustang that's in the game. That is a licensing deal that they have struck with Ford and GM and these other cars as well. So it's already being done,
just
but
like
you're
FIFA
not seeing it to this level.
Money, there was a lot of money going back and forth with FIFA for licensing and everything else too. So I think, but these games that don't have a sports authority that's overseeing them, or these cars that have all these copyrights and names and everything already, this is going to give them an opportunity to make some money on something that isn't licensing for a product.
Yeah, I'm just trying to look. I'm trying to find looking at Madden to see if there's anything that's jumping out as an ad. I'm not finding anything right now. I'm sure there is.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So one other thing, there's an update from the Activision Blizzard kind of takeover, or that's supposed to be happening here, that FTC is fighting.
Sure.
Microsoft is being sued by gamers over this $69 billion deal now. Of course, this is out of California, but now gamers are trying to prevent the deal from happening, which they're worried that, that with the price increases, subscription services, that, they're going to gain an edge that's going to be unfair, by purchasing this. And so they're worried that they're going to foreclose rivals, limit output, reduce consumer choice, raise prices, and further inhibit competition. Is their complaint.
Well, I mean, I guess, Brian, if this is your will as a gamer, I guess you've got the right to have an opinion. I think it's stupid, but I guess this is how it works.
I mean, were they worried they're going to throw their favorite games in the Game Pass so that they end up paying less over time for them? I mean, I don't know what they're worried about.
Yeah,
these are more probably people working in the gaming industry that are like, well, how are we supposed to sell our game for $70 if all our competition's in the Game Pass? That's probably more where this is coming from.
Yeah, maybe it's because I've got my Microsoft rose-colored glasses on, which I'm fully aware that I have. I just don't seem to understand any. I'm sure there are some arguments against the Activision Blizzard merger that I can probably subscribe to, but I have yet to see them be made by either the FTC or this suit at all. The points that they're making are just retarded. They don't make any sense. Microsoft already controls one of the industry's most popular and largest video game ecosystem, the suit says. The proposed acquisition would give Microsoft an unrivaled position in the gaming industry, leaving it with the greatest number of must-have games and iconic franchises. I don't know how that's... I would make the argument that Nintendo... I don't even subscribe to that notion. Activision
doesn't let anybody else play in their garden.
Activision doesn't own the most amount of iconic franchises and IPs in the video game industry. That is absolute bullshit. No way. Between Sega,
Sony and Nintendo have more.
And Nintendo, absolutely not. That's my point, Brian, is the suit doesn't even make sense.
Yeah. Hopefully it gets thrown out.
Must-have games. What is a must-have game? What is that? Can you define that to me? Not everybody wants to play
Call of Duty is a must, but that's the thing. That's what they come back to. They're like, everybody needs the Call of Duty. No, well, first of all, you don't need any video game. You could walk away from all video games and still live. I don't know if they realize this, but they have also promised way more than what any of these other companies have done. They're taking their flagship product and saying, we'll keep it on your service for 10 years. PlayStation,
Guaranteed
Sony
for
has
10
not
years.
done, guaranteed for 10 years. They'll probably just keep doing it. But the problem is Sony hasn't done this at all. Has Sony offered, can I go play, was it something of War?
God of War.
What's the new one the new God of War? Can I go play that on my Xbox right now?
No.
No, I can't. So any of these Nintendo games. Can I play Nintendo games on anything but a Nintendo?
Not legally, no.
No, not without an emulator, right? So if you want to talk about people that withhold their products from competition devices, the competition of Microsoft are the ones who have been doing that. And we've talked about this before. It happens on an ongoing basis. You look at the list of here's what's being released. We looked at it with the Game Awards, right? Was this last week we talked about this?
Yeah, a couple weeks ago.
All of Microsoft products were multi-console or device, PC, PlayStation, everything. The only ones that were exclusive were all of the competition's products. Sony, yes. Almost all of them were exclusive, and all these other ones were Nintendo's exclusive. And they're going to turn around and claim this. The one company that's actually been open and was willing to just sell their product on any platform, they're worried that they're going to control it. That maybe they're going to force the other companies to actually sell their product and quit trying to hold people into their device.
Yeah, I just find the arguments to be very weak and lame, and just not. Again, if you want to bring up the real legitimate concerns and complaints about it, sure, but these aren't it, folks. I mean, and again, I'm not the big. I'm not a Microsoft shill. I just can't. I'm not gonna subscribe to the moral outrage when the entire video game industry, since the first Atari's systems and Pong made their way forward back in the 70s, has been exclusivities. That's how the entire industry has been built. The reason the PlayStation 2 was so popular is because there was like 900 freaking games for it. And you just had
why don't they go after
I just don't get it.
Apple's phone, I mean, isn't that unfair?
Well,
They're not selling the iOS for other hardware devices.
Well,
I mean, that's just totally unfair.
I can't.
If you look at their logic, they're saying you have to release your product on other hardware devices. Well, Apple has never done that. Microsoft does, but Apple doesn't. Neither
does Sony or Nintendo.
Yeah. And the one company that does it, they're going after it and claiming they're going to do what the other companies do is their worry. Their competition. They're worried they're going to act like their competition. Why don't you say, hey, good job, guys? Because they're the ones who are making things more open. They've moved to Linux, which you would never think that they would do as far as embracing Linux. They've moved away from their own web browser that you guys freaked out about, and now they use the competition's web browser. I mean, talk about a company that's willing to kind of go with the flow nowadays when they didn't. This is the company that goes with the flow. Like, hey, we just want to sell you our product. We don't care how you do it. Look at Outlook. They don't care. Now it's Office 365. Go do it in a web browser. You don't have to buy. We'll give you Word for free and Excel for free on your Android device. You can open up any Word and Excel documents, edit them there. Where did they lock you down anymore? Microsoft back in the day, I have been a Linux guy for a long time. I can sit there and back in the day bash on Microsoft all day long, but you know what? Since they started embracing Linux, there's been a change in thinking, and now they're the totally opposite of that type of thinking. And their actions show it. For me, actions speak louder than words. Their actions show that they don't really care. They're not just trying to sell you Microsoft Office or Windows anymore. They're giving away Windows now for free. Like, what are you worried about now? Everything that people got mad at them about, they pretty much have just said, all right, here, we'll give that for free. Just buy our subscription. Thank you.
I'm sure this is a phrase that Stanford University would have banned, but I'll use it, Brian. This is the situation of damned if you do, damned if you don't. It doesn't matter what they've attempted to do to be on more platforms and allow this stuff. They're still villainized for it. So why even bother? That's it. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. That's all you can say.
Well, and one other thing I want to mention before we end the show is
sure,
the president COO of Activision Blizzard is leaving in March and going to Bored Apes Yacht Club Crypto. It's a crypto outfit.
Oh yeah,
so
very familiar
there.
Yes.
So that's something that's coming up. Didn't really see that coming. I think everybody thought Kotick was it Kotick?
Bobby Kotick. Yeah.
I mean, he's of Activision, right? Not of Blizzard. This is the COO of them all. So.
Yeah. Great. Well, she can go over there and be part of scamming people for NFTs, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Great.
So that'll be fun.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else we wanted to hit before we headed out the door?
No, I don't think so. All
right. Well, if you want to find me, you can get me at Brian Aldridge on Gab, Parler, Getter, Truth Social, or at Boise Computer on Twitter. If you want to check out my blog, you can go to biteoftech.com or go to our website, infectionpodcast.com, and check out on the right-hand side, join our server on Discord. That's a great place if you want to get a hold of one of us. You can message us directly on there, or if you want to toss a link in the news channel for something you think we should be covering in a future show, we'll review those links before we do the live show. If you want to play one on one of our 11 ARC servers, you're more than welcome to that. 11 different maps that we're running, or on our Conan Exile server. If you want to watch the live show, you can do that through Twitch or YouTube, or listen after the fact in one of the lower right-hand side services, platforms, a lot of different ways to listen to the podcast. And if you are listening, that means the show's already been recorded and uploaded, and the show notes have been posted. You can watch the video, you can listen to it there, or follow along with some of the different links and videos. We didn't play a lot of videos today, but there are a number of videos that you can play on there for most of the episodes, and that really helps if you're listening to keep it low bandwidth. If you want to support the show, you can do that through the support option up top or infectionpodcast.com/support.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. We've got a great Christmas program coming up for you next week. We'll be discussing the current state of the economy and where that positions the video game industry as largely a leisure activity. And we'll look at some stats back from 2008 in the video game industry then. Plus, I think one of the coolest segments we will probably ever do is we talked a lot about AI, and specifically how that is coming forward and shaping the video game industry as well. So hopefully you'll join us for that coming up next Tuesday here on Infection. Brian, to you and to everybody listening, Merry Christmas, and we will chat with you one more time before the new year.
Yep, talk to you after the holidays.
All righty. Thanks, Brian, and thanks, everybody, for tuning in to another episode of Infection Podcast. Again, my name is Nick Craig. You can check me out at nickcraig.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at Nicholas M. Craig. That's going to do it. If you missed any portion of the program, don't forget to head on over to our website. It's infectionpodcast.com. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Have a great week. Merry Christmas. We'll see you next time.